Good morning and welcome to the Propeller Club of Northern California. I'm Stas Margaronis, and we have a very interesting presentation today. If you are not muted, please do so I can hear myself. We have presentations from PCC Logistics, Brandon McDonnell, StormGeo's Darren Shems, and Ed Kearney's founder of Boundary Layer Technologies has got a super fast container carrier that we just saw a brief on. So without further ado, I am going to start introducing, asking everybody to introduce themselves, and I will ask you to just say hello and who you are, so we can just visit for a couple of minutes, and then as soon as we get through the introductions, we will start our main program. Each of the speakers will speak for 10 minutes, and following that, we will have questions from the audience. And I should just warn you that in May, on May 20th and 21st, the Propeller Club will have two presentations, an export strategies presentation on at 10:30 on Thursday the 20th. And our keynote speaker is Peter Friedman, Executive Director of the Ag Transportation Coalition. And on Friday, the acting administrator for the Maritime Administration, Lucinda Leslie, will be the keynote speaker for our Salute to the Jones Act. And we will be joined by representatives from the Pasha Group, Foss Maritime, our own Nick Marone from the Seafarers International Union, and Tori Presti from National Shipping of America. So without further ado, I am going to introduce my co-pilot, Mr. Todd Crawshaw. Good morning, Mr. Crawshaw. You're on mute, Todd.
Should know better. Crawshaw Design. We provide integrated brand marketing for print and the web. So that's us.
Thank you. Brandon McDonnell. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right. Very good. Good morning, everybody. Thank you.
And you are?
Brandon McDonnell, PCC Logistics. We are 3PL, warehousing, transload, distribution, located in LA, Oakland, and Seattle. I've been with PCC for 23 full-time years, 25 if you include college years, and excited for the opportunity to be here. Thank you, Stas.
Thank you, Brandon. Alice Herron. Good morning, Alice.
Good morning. I'm Alice Herron, Golden State Renewable Energy, and I'm also on the board of directors of the Propeller Club.
Thank you, Alice. Anita Yao. Good morning, Anita.
Good morning. This is Anita Yao for Port of San Francisco Wharfinger, handling the ferry service, excursion, lay, berth. Yeah, one of the board of directors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anita. Clay Sandage. We have a celebrity from Southern California. And
yeah.
Golden Gate Bridge. They don't believe that. Don't believe
Yes.
it. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Stas. My name is Clay Sandage. I'm with P2S Engineering. I'm the energy market sector leader for P2S, and just happy to be participating with the Propeller Club of NoCal, and I look forward to joining here shortly and engaging with all of you folks. So pleasure to be here today.
Clay, thank you very much, and we look forward to your membership and your participation.
Thank you, sir.
Benita Margaronis. Good morning, Ms. Margaronis.
Hello.
And who are you?
I'm your daughter.
And what do you do?
I'm studying IT right now.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Benita. Bill Nixon. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Stas. This is Bill Nixon working with Transmarine Navigation, serving bulk cargo ships on the West Coast.
Thank you very much, sir. And I just saw, hold on a second, I saw Dan Edelston. Good morning, Dan.
Hey, good morning, Stas, and everyone out there. Dan Edelston with Foss Maritime Company in Richmond. I've been with Foss for going on about 21 years now. Just glad to be here, and thank you for the invite.
Very good. Mary Schindler, good morning. Mary, you're on mute. I can't hear you. You're still muted. We can't hear you, Mary.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Okay, Mary, start again.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
I am honored to be here this morning. I'll just take a minute of your time. I emailed Stas this recently and asked him if there was any historical or archival information about my father, who was the president and founder of Pacific Far East Line in 1945. And for you younger members, I'm not sure if you would even be familiar with Pacific Far East Line, but he was a shipper through and through. He started with the dollar lines in 1921. He went with APL and was a vice president eventually with APL, and then founded Pacific Far East Line. And in 1956-57 year, he received the brass hat from the Propeller Club. And I'm not sure if the Propeller Club still gives these out to members, but his name is engraved on it with the year. It's very heavy, very solid. And I was just a kid at the time, so I had no idea that that was going on, but it was such a beautiful gesture. And he was part of the club. I was asking, I'm not sure when he joined, but we're going to see if we can find out anything else about him. And he was just major player at Port of San Francisco for his career. And I just wanted to share, I'm not sure you'll be able to see it, but there was a cartoon that was made by Jesse Resendez at the time. And I'm going to show it to you, but the quote was, looks like Tom, his name is Tom Cuff, by the way. My dad was Thomas Edwin Cuff. Cuff, C as in Charles, U, double F as in Frank, E. And looks like Tom Cuff got stuck with the Brass Hat Award again tonight. So I'm going to put it up.
Very nice.
And hope that you can see that. It's
very
really
good.
So it's a real special memory. I'm writing a book about him. That's why I'm looking for information about him. It's going to be a biography, and I really feel honored to be able to share that with you. And I know you have a full agenda. So Stas, thank you very much for the invitation, and have a good meeting today. Thank you all.
Gary, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you for that. I see Mr. Dominic Moreno. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Stas. Good morning, Propeller Club. Dominic Moreno, Maritime Operations Manager with Port of San Francisco.
Thank you very much. And I see Ed Kearney. Ed, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, yes. I'm Ed Kearney, founder and CEO of Boundary Layer Technologies. We're making zero emissions hydrofoiling cargo ships that will replace air freight.
Very good, Ed. And you're one of our speakers. Welcome.
I am very, very pleased to be here.
Very good. Evie Wong. Good morning, Evie.
Good morning, Stas. Hello, everyone. Pleased to be here with Alpha Wheels Up and current president of Customs Brokers Forwarders of Northern California and proud member of Propeller Club. I like that brass hat. That's really cool.
You too. I'm sorry we got rid of it. We'll have to figure that one out. Thank you, Evie. Jose Estrada. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm a student here at Cal Maritime, senior class, and I just came by to see what this club's all about.
Very good. Well, welcome. And do you have a job lined up after you graduate?
I do not. I'm looking around, so I was hoping to network through this organization.
Well, why don't you send me your resume and we will get it out to our membership. How's that?
Okay. All right, that sounds great.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Jose. Kevin Donnelly, good morning, sir. Kevin?
Hey, good morning. Thank you for the invite. I'm with the Water Emergency Transportation Authority. Happy to be here today.
Very good. Are we ever going to see some battery and hydrogen ferries coming up, Kevin?
I hope so. Yeah, we'll see what size they are and what speed we can make and stuff. But yes, I think you're going to definitely see those in our future.
Well, Kevin, this is very interesting, and at some point we would like to invite you to come and speak to us and tell us about what you guys are doing. You're a very important part of our waterfront, and we value your contribution.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks.
You're welcome. Kevin Policarpo. Good morning, Kevin.
Morning, Mr. Suss.
How are you? You want to introduce yourself?
Okay. Hello, my name is Kevin Policarpo. I'm currently a student at the Santa Rosa Junior College, and I've been helping being Mr. Margaronis out as his assistant for almost 2 years, even though it was originally supposed to run until December of the year I originally started with him. But hey, he's a good boss. I like working with him.
My daughter's laughing in the background. Kevin, thank you very much. I will see you on Tuesday. You take care. Konstantinos.
Oh, you want me to get going now, or
you're done, but you can just watch and visit with us at the end. Konstantinos.
Hi, everyone. Another Cal Maritime student. My name is Konstantinos Kechriotis. I'm Greek, clearly. I'm a senior. I'll be graduating May 15th, and I will be joining BAE Systems San Diego in their ship repair, and I will be superintendent starting off my career. So that's me.
Well, Costa, very good luck with you. Please keep posted. We, as I said before we started, shipbuilding is very important to the United States, and your contributions are very important. So good luck and Godspeed.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Laura Covery, Captain Covery, good morning.
Good morning. Yes, and to those students at Cal Maritime, I'm a Cal Maritime graduate a long time ago. To Mary, it was Mary, I think. I was actually a cadet for Pacific Far East Lines, so I'm very familiar with it. And I remember the ship that was named after her father, the Thomas E. Cuff.
Really?
Yeah.
You're dating yourself, Laura.
I know, but I teach at Cal State Long Beach and UCLA Extension. I teach supply chain management.
Very good. Laura, welcome. And thank you for being here once again. And so we have Maritime Day. I don't know whether you heard, on the 21st, Friday the 21st, and the Maritime Administrator will be speaking. So if you're available, we'd love to see you.
I will be there. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Mr. Scott Taylor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Stas. Good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Taylor. I'm the CEO and chairman of the board of Pcc Logistics here at the Port of Oakland. Nice to see everybody.
And what do you think of the Oakland A's Howard Terminal Baseball Park proposal?
Do you have a couple of hours? I don't want to steal Brandon McDonnell's thunder. I think that's a subject for another day. But I think we're making progress on our end. We're very concerned about it. It would be devastating for the Port of Oakland. And we've got some a very good coalition, and we're comfortable with our position.
Very good. Scott, as always, thank you for your support and your good work in the fight against the ballpark.
Thanks, Stas.
I see Susan Ransom, who is somebody who has a very vested interest in keeping our waterfront and our port operational and not having distractions. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning, Susan Ransom, Client Relations Manager for SSA Terminal in Oakland, proud member of the Propeller Club board member. And yes, the fight goes on, and Scott and I, hand in hand with a lot of other people, are going to make sure this happens.
Susan.
Or not.
And not. Thank you very much, Susan. And Tony Petronio, introduce yourself, please.
Good morning, Stas. Good morning, everybody. I'm Tony Petronio. I'm the General Manager of Fleet Operations West. And you'll actually be hearing from my colleague, Darren Shems, here during one of the presentations. And that's good to see everybody.
Very good. Tony, it's good to see you again. And we welcome your participation. Susan Sullivan, good morning, ma'am. Susan, I saw you, you're there, and you were on your phone.
Hi, Stas. I'm sorry. Got a terminal issue. I'm Sue Sullivan from Pasha, Hawaii. I manage the over high and wide department, and I am a member of the board of directors for the Propeller Club. Thank you.
And Susan, how are things going in Hawaii?
They're waking up. They're doing well. A lot of tourism is back. Business is great. The ships are full, so things are looking really good.
Very good. Glad to hear. Okay. Now, Todd, did I get everybody?
I saw there's a Deirdre Hudson came in late, and then also who's else?
Mike Chapman.
Oh, Mike, good morning.
Mike.
Good morning. Just in, sorry to be late. Women's Appellate Club, Port of the Golden Gate, and we support the Red Oak Victory, California Maritime, and the Jeremiah O'Brien.
Very good. Mike, as always, thank you very much. And we hope to see you soon at one of your events. I think we're gonna, we're all vaccinated, so we're about to get out.
Yeah, I'm working on May 19th.
Very good. Thank you very much. Sean Coughlin. Good morning, Sean.
Morning from Seattle. Happy to be here. I'm with Gloston in Seattle.
Oh, very good. Sean, welcome. And we had a colleague of yours, Matthew Lewandowski.
Matthew Lankowski, yes. I'm here in his stead today.
Oh, very good. Okay, well, welcome very much and glad to see you. Okay, did I get everybody now, Todd?
Well, there was, Jacques Ferenz, I saw it come in.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Is it Jacques Ferenz? I see. I'm not sure who that is.
All right.
Hi, I'm Jackie Ferenz.
Jackie,
I'm
okay.
Yes, I'm with Avalon Risk Management, and my colleague, partner in crime, is Deidre Hudson.
Oh, very good. Is Deidre?
She's on the call too.
Okay, very good. Okay, Jackie, thank you very much for coming. Where are you located, Jackie?
I'm located in Washington, Seattle.
Okay, very good. Well, we're very glad to have you, and thank you for participating.
Thank you.
And Deidre, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, sure. I got that great introduction from Jackie, though. I'm Deidre Hudson. I manage the San Francisco office and of Avalon Risk Management. Happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to the information being provided.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great person to know.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. With that kind of rep, we're in good shape there, Evie. Thank you. So, without further ado, I am going to introduce our first speaker. Brandon McDonnell is Vice President of PCC Logistics. He began his career, as he was telling us, while he was attending Cal State Hayward. His formal initiation into the industry commenced at PCC located in Oakland. He's held various positions ranging from operations to sales, and he's a board member of the Pacific Transportation Association. Brandon has also been on the front line of the warehouse issue, and our warehouses have really done heroic work in the last year during the COVID situation. And PCC is one of our major warehouses serving the Port of Oakland. Brandon, thank you very much for taking your time to come and speak to us. And you have the floor.
All right, let's see. Are you guys seeing the first slide? Every thumbs up?
We are.
Yes.
All right. Anyways, welcome everybody. Thank you, Stas. Thank you everybody for being here. I'll go through this pretty quick. So if there are any questions, PCC Logistics, we are 3PL located in Port of Oakland, Seattle, LA, and Tacoma. Transload, distribution, drayage, the normal warehousing services, if you will. There's our locations, basic services. Jump right in. This was kind of the day that everything changed for us. I remember this day vividly last year, the day we truly began to realize the impact and that COVID would be the focus of the rest of our year. Wholly honest, we almost had a mutiny that day. One of our larger warehouses is literally right across from where this vessel berthed. And people were concerned. They were concerned for their families. They were concerned for their health. The tents and the vehicles and the 24-hour news cycle didn't make anything any easier. And unfortunately, there were more questions than answers. We didn't know. We didn't know how long it was going to be there. We didn't know if COVID, well, airborne, but how far? Nobody knew. Some of the early challenges that shame on us. I'll always say, I got to say, I'll digress. One of the things we should have realized when they shut down Chinese New Year, we should have probably realized here, and I speak for PCC, that this was going to reach our shores and we should have been more proactive. And I always kick myself for that. But March 16th, the Alameda County Health Order came out and only essential activities. March 19th, statewide stay-at-home order. And at that point, we're essential, but essential at what cost? We had to have a lot of meetings with management and staff, all levels, to determine whether we were going to stay open or not. And that was a very close call. The vote was close. We chose to stay in. We chose to keep people at work, choice only. It was purely optional. And that being said, we really had to figure out how to work from home, how to rotate people in and out. Some of us had the option. A lot of us did not have an option because, as you say, you can't move cargo remotely. You have to have people on site. And everybody involved in that part of this operation had to make a choice. And it wasn't an easy one. We tell people we keep them safe. It was really a promise we couldn't keep. It was one of the most difficult times ever in my career, and I imagine a lot of people's career. The stay-at-home statewide school closure. A lot of people have families. Once their kids were home, they had to stay home as well. And they wanted to continue working. They had to continue working. So how do we facilitate that? How do we stay efficient, keep moving cargo with people from home? And then, of course, toilet paper, sanitizer, and mask. PCC ultimately purchased a lot of PPE equipment from China, had it shipped over just so we could ensure that we're able to provide basic necessities to staff while on site and while working. Interesting times. HR, as you might imagine, outside of staff on the dock, HR had a lot of challenges last year. HR department had to facilitate leave, answer questions, keep up with the OSHA, CDC guidelines requirements. We have 9 sites. Each site for OSHA had to put together a site-specific protection plan. Each site's different, range in 30,000 square feet to 300,000 square feet. HR had to answer many questions in regards to safety measures. They had to address concerns daily. I gotta say, it seems so simple, but one of the things we did that made the biggest difference, we put together an anonymous suggestion box. We had one on site and we had one through email. So if people saw something or they heard something or they had questions, but they didn't want to be the odd man out, they didn't want to be the one person going against the grain. It made a huge difference in addressing concerns at each facility. The other thing was a lot of us have to work. We can't afford to stay home. And I'll get into it in 2 slides from now, but a lot of people felt obligated to work and they came with symptoms. And, you know, we had to really press, when in doubt, stay home, don't come. And we'll do what we can to ensure that we bridge the gap or we chip in along with everything else, you know, federally and statewide that happened. But we had to ensure that we put safety first and people felt that they could stay home. You know, legal conversations last year, our invoices personally doubled from the year before as it relates to legal, you know, related to staff, service failure, cargo. I can answer specific questions on that, but it was just our HR department went through some major challenges last year. As a matter of note, we checked and we tracked every case we had, but July, December, and January were the largest number of cases for PCC. As many of you know, export peaks in November, December, prior to Chinese New Year, and when we had the least amount of staff. Economic challenges were many. To keep the doors open, PCC had to adopt a hazardous pay for all of our staff, an hourly increase for each person. We were one of the first companies to do it, and it made a big difference. You know, I think people, to risk themselves and with the unknown, I think they needed to be rewarded for it, if you will. The labor for cleaning, each facility had multiple cleaning crews, office and dock. It was an hourly thing, day in and day out. Of course, you know, you had your mask and sanitizer and general PPE. COVID testing. Once we started having breakouts at our facility, October through January, different facilities, we identified mobile testing. And on average, that was $12,000 per visit. And in Alameda County specifically, if you had 3 cases, you had to bring them back the next day. You had to show OSHA, you had to show your staff more than anybody that you're taking this serious and you're ensuring their safety. That was $12,000 a visit every time that mobile unit came on site. That was 5 days straight. And actually overall, we had about 15 of those days just to ensure staff safety and keep the doors open. There was a business slowdown early on when we truly didn't know what was going to happen, but I think as many of the people here into the trucking and warehousing understand that business did come back. Business customer service challenges were many, in large part labor. Is it safe to bring temp labor in? Was temp labor even available? If somebody had been exposed or had a symptom, they had to stay home 10, 14 days. That changed. It was fluid. But in the end, we had to ensure people were safe. And we had many service failures just because of lack of labor. And then customer service trying to work from home and facilitate cargo movement while being from home. And of course, PCC had to figure out how to transfer of information to ensure that it was fluid, real time. As far as business went, you know, we averaged from April through January about 2,100 containers a month. Exports were non-existent, and we handle a lot of protein accounts. When some of the larger protein accounts shut down due to COVID outbreaks, or the prior administration wanted to shift a lot of that production to domestic, business was non-existent, but things rebounded in October. For exports, our imports were down April through June. Mr. Taylor can speak to imports far better. We rebounded in August of last year for some of our imports and our trucking operations. But the largest challenges really, they were last year outside of labor, and they're ongoing, is the congestion, equipment shortages, and really a total supply chain failure, which we haven't recovered from. And that's creating as many issues as COVID did last year currently. This was kind of for fun, but it wasn't a fun day, but the end all be all. Excuse my language, but what the hell? How do you keep anybody safe at this point? I mean, you can't be outside to have your meetings. socially distanced. You can't be inside. People are moving cargo, driving lifts, driving trucks. There's probably already, frankly, enough pollution in our industry and in general areas we're located in. But couple that with trying to throw boxes or lift equipment, it truly was kind of end of days. I'll never forget this day, as many of you, and we kind of threw our hands up at that point. There was nothing that we could do to keep anybody safe, and it was really it was a tough time. I'll leave that at that. Biggest challenges of the past year and the future, COVID, labor and staffing. One thing that made a big difference for us, and it's cliche and it's obvious, but I clear, concise daily communication. I mean, it really made a difference. Some of us drove to Seattle and Tacoma. We drove to LA when flights weren't readily available and we weren't quite sure if it was safe. We showed up. We stayed on site. A few of us never left the office. We stayed in front of the employees. If we could ask them to work, we should be there as well. And it made a big difference. It made a big difference last year, and we probably didn't do enough of it, but we did as much as we could. On top of the social challenges last year and things that happened in the nation, it was just it was a action-packed year, for lack of a better term. In short, guys, I thank you. I talk fast, so I'm open to any questions. But one thing, business just can't be business anymore. Not that it ever was. It never was just about punching in, but I do hope whatever lessons we learned last year, I truly hope that we continue and we always ensure that employees, staff, and people are safe. And more than anything, mentally, mind states are important. Where people are mentally, it's good to check in. And I encourage you to, your friends, your colleagues, anybody, don't hesitate to ask them how they're doing. This industry had heroes too. I know we weren't on the front lines like nurses and medical people, but we had heroes too. People who showed up every day to move PPE, to move containers gratis, to ensure cargo that was necessary made it to its final destination. So thank you. I'm proud of everybody in this industry. I truly, truly am. A lot of us showed up last year and we did our best. So that's all I got, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, Brandon, thank you very much. That was a very interesting presentation. It's clear you had major challenges and that you guys were able to address them. And you are heroes, and you did the really important work here. Our next speaker is Darren Shems. He is the Senior Route Analyst for StormGeo. And Darren is also the Internal Audit Leader for all StormGeo business lines. He's a graduate of the California Maritime Academy. He has a third mate unlimited tonnage license. And he is a longtime member of the Propeller Club, and StormGeo has been a corporate member for years. Whenever the weather gets bad, the ships have to talk to StormGeo. So without further ado, did I do a good intro there, Darren?
Pretty much got it. I'm one of the senior route analysts. We have quite a few, but I'm presently Fleet Operations Center West, presently on the container team. Can service any ship type worldwide, but that's the team that I'm assigned to. But yeah, pretty good.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, shout out to my Cal Maritime brothers and sisters today. So yeah, it was back in 2004 I graduated, and then after that a short 4-year stint with Marine Terminals Corporation, then becoming Ports America Group, and that was down at Pure T in LA. So exciting time down there, of course.
Very good.
All right, so I'll go ahead and share. Is that coming through screen? Is that coming through all right for everyone?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll try to go through this quickly. Of course, I'm sure questions will be after the third presentation. So, all right. So we're going to kind of briefly go over some seasonal weather issues and some of the strategies we were dealing with for the 2020-2021 winter in particular. for Northern Pacific. Okay, so for this previous winter, before that we had a moderate El Nino. This previous winter we were transitioning into more of a moderate La Nina pattern. So did generally make things a little bit easier on the eastern section, getting access to the Bering. Western Ocean, a little bit more complex. And then, of course, there's some concern with regard to South China Sea, getting into Taiwan Strait transit with the Asian monsoon, the northeasterlies there. Okay, so here we can kind of see northern lower sea level pressure average in the Gulf of Alaska. It's more frequent gales, but higher sea level pressure over the northern South China Sea indicates more frequent northeasterly surges. So we can go and look at some of the differences between the El Nino pattern and La Nina. This is just basically an average for what the temperatures are looking like. So for the La Nina, you can see that it lifts a little bit over the Gulf of Alaska there. So it might be kind of hard to pick out, but if I go back and forth, you can see a little bit of the changes there. Again, this is just averages. Okay. So changes in gale track here. This is kind of the just real general sort of meat and potatoes on what your overall routing strategies look like. It's certainly not overall solution for everything. So normally you'll have your main low track coming east of Japan, tracking south of the Aleutians into the Gulf of Alaska, maybe heading a little bit closer to the Pacific Northwest. Typically, of course, this creates some challenges when you're coming out westbound, trying to get access to Unimac Pass for your typical westbound route selection you would select. So going into more of a La Nina track, you can see these storms will track a lot more sharply to the north-northeast. So the challenge then becomes, okay, I can get up to Unimac Pass a little bit easier, but what am I looking like for my exits? And of course, you're talking about closing distances a lot faster with these systems when you're going westbound. So you might have to take some early measure and bail south Amchitka, west of Buldir, versus going typically north of Attu, which we would do. On some occasions, timing may even require going closer to the Komandorskis and Kamchatka Peninsula, and maybe even temporarily ducking west of the Kurils in the Western Ocean. So here you can see a little bit of an example of what that might look like. So you start out with the minimized emissions control transit with that initial parallel sail about westbound for ECA exit. You get up to Unimac, and then normally the green you would see we'd go north of Attu and then come down on perhaps a modified GC to make sure that you pass north and west of heavier head swell in the Western Ocean. But with the La Nina pattern, you may have to dive down a little bit farther south. Now, of course, this is inherently higher risk because once you're out there, you're not going to have any shelter options. All you can do is dive farther south. So the confidence level you have to have it needs to be pretty good. So you can't bank on that right after departure. You might have to wait until you get to Unimac Pass for the forecast confidence going 3, 4, or 5 days out to come in closer alignment where you can confidently say, okay, we're going to go ahead and do this and bail south. Okay. So for Asian monsoon, the graphic to the right kind of describes it a little bit more easily. Generally, if we're talking about an eastbound route that's lifting some bunkers in Singapore, we might wait until then before we decide to do anything drastic and go closer to Palawan, that east route there, to avoid these head conditions, and then maybe close coastal off of Luzon there before we head up towards Taiwan. So we're looking at frequency, duration of the surges there for these head conditions, and of course, there's considerations for high traffic through Taiwan Strait and ship size as well. Okay, so this might look a little crazy, so I'm gonna kind of take you through this. So on the front end, if we're looking at some westbound options from California, you'll see that northern route going up to Unimac Pass again towards the Aleutians, that's going to be your primary that you're going to hope you can pull off if you have a good enough window. But of course, we're going to be looking at multiple options. It's not just slight variations along the northern route. We're looking at everything. So, you know, if there's concerns, maybe there's break bulk below deck on a container ship, even there'll be some consideration there. ECA calculations, fuel costs are going to go into that. But quite often you'll run into a situation where reducing the ECA transit time may not end up being lowest cost. So if you look at the main on the bottom left, and that's your blue vessel on the right side there, you can see this actually still ends up being lowest cost. Alt 1, your red, that's that southern divert. So of course, much less risk for heavy weather along that one, but you can see the dollar amount that we're dealing with here. An Alt 2 is your mid-latitude route. Now, I would consider that potentially a lot higher risk, depending on the departure time and what the weather pattern's been looking like, because again, you're just out in the central ocean, so your contingency options might be limited there. So it just gives a little bit of a general overview. Anytime you're looking at these westbound routes, you're always going to look at a route south of Japan or via Sugaro Kaikyo off of Hokkaido to the north. All right. So here we can see there may be a situation where, okay, you know, we have our general routing strategy, but it's not going to be the same every time. So you might have a situation where there's a quick succession of mid-latitude storms that'll come up, and you're completely blocked off to Unimac Pass from these mid-lats. You just can't get up there. So you got to go ahead and make the decision early that we're going to commit to a southern route. You might be able to save some distance over the Western Ocean, but in the winter, not likely, because you're going to have those quickly developing lows east of Japan. So once you're committing to this south route, you're kind of married to it. But if that's the deal early on, you can at least bank on a higher forecast confidence shortly after departure. It just is what it is. It's not worth the risk. Might be a little bit different if we're dealing with outbound from Juan de Fuca, where you can proceed north through Hecate Strait and maybe shelter there a bit before exiting out of Dixon entrance and shooting over to Unimac Pass. So you could play a little bit of a timing game there, perhaps, but from California, it might be a little bit more tricky. All right. So eastbound considerations, there's a little bit more on here because it's a little confusing to see here. So we have a southern route here, of course, but once you're committing to the southern route, you know, the distance, it's going to be continually evaluated throughout the voyage. We're going to see, all right, can we pick up a little bit of distance saved here, commencing a GC as conditions might moderate over the Eastern Ocean. So we're continuously looking at that. And again, it might not be a situation where reducing that ECA transit with the higher fuel cost will result in the most economical option. Quite often, a longer distance through that ECA zone is still the best way to go. So here you can see a reevaluation committing to that south route to remain south of the storms in the Western and Central Ocean, and looking again, okay, so the main route, we have, that's the GC. So we go all the way out to mid-ocean and then commence that shortest route into Santa Barbara Channel. And then you can see in the chart there, of course, that's the lowest cost overall. But just to make sure, Alt 1, we're checking here to see, okay, what if we run line in and just remain south of the ECA shortly prior to arrival. And of course that loses big, you're losing on distance quite a bit there. And then just to make sure, okay, well, what if we commence a GC, but then the entry point at the emissions control area is still reducing that stretch a bit. But you can see here on Alt 2, that still loses. Okay. So like I kind of alluded to, it's going to be a case-by-case risk management type of situation. We might have to consider the age of the vessel, the cargo, of course, weather confidence, where we're at in the voyage. Resonance might be an issue. So when we think of synchronous rolling, parametric rolling, it's all getting kind of baked in. So if we're looking at prior to arrival, and there might be some concerns as far as, again, this emissions control and the cost of the lower sulfur fuel. We're going to be looking at things like this as well. Like, we got to keep this vessel out of a situation where we're potentially putting it into parametric rolling with some residual northwesterly swell in the Eastern Pacific. So in this case, you can see in the bottom left resonance graph here, we're trying to keep in between this purple and red bar here to avoid any kind of situation where you're going to put additional stresses on those lashing forces.
Darren, you've got 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, maybe I could go back and talk about some extra things here. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull up something that I have. There we go. Okay. Let's see if this will come up here. All right. So this is an example of where we might have had to dive south. And again, this wasn't even boulder. We had to go quite early on. So I can walk through here what this looked like. So all the waypoints are in there because this is historical. Let's see if this will go ahead. Okay. Oh, go back. Okay, so we'll walk this thing right through departure. So we can see sometimes you'll have a dual benefit. Maybe the shortest route, GC all the way up to Unimac is lowest cost, but maybe it's not, but maybe it's a dual benefit. Once you run the numbers, you can say, okay, well, we got to get south of this initial storm, but we can also reduce the ECA transit duration here and reduce a little bit of cost with that higher cost of fuel. And then we'll commence that GC, clear northwest of that second system. Everything looks green getting up to Unimac. Okay, now we're looking at this. So we can reassess, okay, can we get north of that too, or do we want to do something a little bit more drastic? Forecast confident gets better. We say, okay, it looks like Western Ocean is going to be quite active. You can see this large system over the Sea of Okhotsk, east of Sakhalin there, and quite amplified gradient. It's for sure going to impact any northern route option. You might not get away with going north and west of the Komandorsky Islands. So you make the decision, okay, we're going to go ahead and commit to bail to the south and minimize these head conditions. So you might get a quick, brief period, several hours, and maybe 6-meter head swell, which likely in this situation is kind of right at the max threshold or just below for what they might have been okay with. Maybe some course adjustments as needed for best handling during a brief period of 5-6 meter significant wave heights. So we manage that and then go ahead and proceed into Seguro Kaikyo as that high pressure builds to the east, and then home free to Busan.
Very good. Okay, Darren, thank you very much for that. And that is a lot for us to take into. We have no idea how complicated it is. When I was at sea, the captain got a couple of weather reports and he just took off, and whatever happened.
Right. It's kind of, I mean, it could be a little challenging to breeze through this in 15 minutes. We could spend hours talking about general routing strategy and overall fleet optimization and different service types. But yeah, we leave it open maybe for some future discussions, and maybe the questions will lead us into that. But there's quite a bit that goes into this, and it is not just a one solution deal. Like, okay, we have a moderate La Nina, these are going to be our routes. Everything's case by case and reevaluated over and over and over every day throughout the voyage.
Very good. Ed Kearney is the co-founder and CEO of Boundary Layer Technologies, and he has been a member for 3 years. We have watched his progress going through a number of alliterations. Ed, welcome, and you have the floor.
Thank you very much. It's very exciting to be here, giving a much more structured presentation compared to the previous ad hoc accidental profanity on an earlier presentation. But anyway, onto the slides. So we're Boundary Layer Technologies, and we're building hydrogen-powered cargo ships that will replace air freight. So I guess a bit of a question about why. Air freight's a huge market. It's arguably bigger in some respects in terms of revenue than containerized sea freight. It moves 35% of the value of global trade. It moves 1% of the mass. So a tiny amount of the mass is moved by air freight, yet it is a massive industry. It's growing pretty fast and it makes a reasonable amount of profit. We see the huge problem with air freight is it's the most polluting of freight modes. So deep sea, container freight is pretty much the most efficient way of moving anything on the planet. It gets a pretty bad rap for being one of the most efficient ways, I guess, because the total emissions is pretty big. Air freight produces more or less the same amount of total emissions as containerized sea freight. Yeah, no one's really complaining too much about air freight. And it's 75 times worse per ton mile compared to container shipping. So this is why we're pretty interested in it. Big companies in the US have made bold claims that they're going to go carbon neutral in the future. And these companies all use a lot of air freight. There isn't really a carbon neutral air freight solution that'll come into fruition in the next, say, 10 years. I mean, Airbus have some hydrogen powered concept planes that maybe might get, built and start flying in 10 to 15 years time. And even at that point in time, there'll be one out of a fleet of, I don't know, 5,000 or 10,000 normal air freighters. So it'll take another 10 years for these to actually become the main way of moving stuff. So this is kind of the problem we see is air freight's polluting a lot. Everyone needs a carbon neutral alternative to air freight, but the tech isn't really there yet. So that's kind of where we come along. So also, as everyone will probably inherently know, there's a big gap between air freight and sea freight in terms of transit time, but also cost. So if you've ever sent anything by air freight or by sea freight or spoken to your freight forwarder trying to decide which one's for you, they'll say, okay, well, you can move your container from Shanghai to LA by sea freight. It'll cost you, I don't know, $1,000 to $3,000, depending on whether it's 2019 or if it's 2021. Or you can send it by air freight and it'll cost you, $2 a kilogram, depending on what you've got in the box and what its volume is. Sea freight will take you, 3 to 4 weeks, depending. Air freight, 3 to 7 days. You say, oh, is there anything in between? And the air freight forward will say, no, I wish. So this is another problem that, customers and people with this move stuff kind of face. So this is our proposed solution to this. And we've been working on this for about 2.5 years now. What it is, it's a hydrogen powered craft with hydrofoils on it that enables it to travel at 40 knots. So this is roughly twice the speed of a conventional container ship. Once you travel at 40 knots, you can do Shanghai to LA, in 6 days flat, depending on the route you take, of course, as Darren's kind of pointed out. Liquid hydrogen is energy dense enough to make this voyage possible, which is very exciting. Thus, it's zero CO2 is emitted from the vehicle and opens the door to, if you can source green hydrogen to put in the boat, even blue hydrogen is still a considerable improvement on CO2 emissions per ton mile compared to air freight. Another exciting thing is it's about half the cost of air freight. Aeroplanes are very expensive in anything they do. If you have a safety critical event, you lose the plane and everybody on it. Whereas on a ship, things don't need to be quite as highly engineered as on a plane. So this is one of the main reasons why you can make it a lot cheaper than air freight. Here are some particulars of the vessel. So we're looking at a 90 meter or, roughly 300 foot vessel. Quite small in the scheme of things, 160 TEU, but that's still 16 747s worth of cargo. So once you start considering that we're actually competing with air freight, it's quite a large vessel, and it's going to be powered by liquid hydrogen and fuel cells. But a bit of a fun story about how we got from not doing this to trying and getting to where we are at the moment. It all started about 2 years ago when Jeremy on the right and myself arrived in San Francisco with lots of hopes and dreams, with the ambition to build the hydrofoil container ship that you saw. We got entrance into a incubator program, which lasted for 10 weeks. And up until this point, we hadn't really built that much. We built a radio controlled version of a hydrofoil boat, and we'd attempted a electric hydrofoiling jet ski, which had low success. Anyway, we managed to get into the incubator anyway. They gave us $150,000 and we had 10 weeks until demo day. We had maybe a few pairs of pliers and screwdrivers in our luggage, but that was it. So the first thing we did was we went and bought a pickup truck and paid for it with a credit card because we're in America now. So that's still with the company, that vehicle, and that was a good experience. This was the vessel we set out to build in the 10 weeks. We decided to go with a pontoon boat design because you can build pontoon boats reasonably quickly and easily. We wanted it to carry one 20-foot container to show, like, here is a hydrofoiling container ship, and it has 2 carbon fiber hydrofoils on it, and that's kind of it. We had a budget of $150,000 and had to build it in 10 weeks, so we gave it a red hot go. So what we did was we called every pontoon builder we could find and asked them if they could send us a kit, and the one that could get it to us the fastest was actually in Canada. So it took them a week to make the kit and another week to ship, and it arrived. We told them to send it to 2900 Main Street, Alameda, which was Bay Ship and Yacht. And after we put in the purchase order, we then called Richard McGuire and said, hey, we need to rent some space. What do you reckon? We've got a pontoon boat arriving. About a month after this, someone told us about the Jones Act, and we're like, well, there you go. Shouldn't have made it in Canada, but it's fine. It's a prototype. This is the efforts we put into building the carbon fiber hydrofoils with a gentleman who has a fabrication shop up in Vallejo. We end up with 2 surface piercing self or passively roll stabilizing foils, which enabled us to get out there quicker without having to build a control system. And then on the back, we powered it with a 300 horsepower Evinrude outboard motor, which we got from our friends at the Outboard Motor Shop. So long story short, we worked really hard to assemble the boat and cook these foils out of carbon and assemble it all. We had a very narrow window where we could launch the boat, test it, prove that it works, get it craned out of the water again before a big army boat came and took up the berth space, and then get it on a truck and take it to demo day. And thankfully, we managed to get it done with just about 30 minutes to spare. We managed to do the test, get the video of it hydrofoiling with a container on it, get it back to the dock, get it lifted out just as this big army boat was pulling into the shipyard, which sort of locked us out. So that's kind of what it looks like underneath. And there's an animated GIF there of it hydrofoiling with a 20-foot container on it. I think to date, this is the only instance of a 20-foot container or any container ship that's going to hydrofoil. Here's a video of it, but I think I'm running short on time. What we're working on next is a much more high-tech version of the same kind of concept. It's a slightly smaller. We can fit it on a boat ramp, so we don't have this problem with craning. It's a fully electric hydrofoiling craft. It features much more efficient hydrofoil wings that we designed in-house. It's got 2 Teslas worth of batteries in it. It's got a computerized stability control system, and it's got fully solid titanium wings. The cruise speed of this will be 40 knots, and as you can see, will be completed in April 2021. So there's maybe 1 or 2 days less in April for us to get it out there, but getting very close to having this launched. We're also going to launch into the market with what we call small cargo ships, aka ferries. So the tech in terms of a ferry and a small cargo ship, pretty much identical. And we're working on some very interesting concepts for a electric passenger ferry, aka small cargo ship. Once you put the boat on foils, it has 50% reduction in drag. Thus, making it electric is a lot easier. The power system can be half the size. You can actually go at a decent speed, like 30, 35, 40 knots with an electric boat. And also the charging side of things is much more improved. You have a much smaller boat that still operates with reasonable ride comfort in rough weather, and also the wake signature is like near zero. So very interesting applications for hydrofoiling technology for the ferry market. Here's a rough timeline of when we want to get this done. Very optimistic, of course, but we're a startup. This is a quick overview of the team. Myself and Jeremy are Australian, and Cameron is an American. And we venture backed, which means we have bold plans, and hopefully we can raise money from Silicon Valley type investors to make the dream a reality. I'll probably leave it at that, and can take questions at the appropriate time.
Very good, Ed. Thank you very much for that. I've recognized a friend of mine who I didn't see earlier on, which is Brandon Jose. Brandon, good morning and good to see you. And I need to go into questions because we're getting into time. So Laura, you have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I have a couple questions, but the one for Ed, actually, I have a couple questions for Ed. Are you familiar with the Hawaii hydrofoils and what happened with those passenger ferries?
Yeah, we're familiar. Are you referring to the super ferry project in Hawaii, or something alternative to that?
The ones that they had a lot of whale injuries, and they ended up going bankrupt because of all of the whale injuries.
Well, they had political problems. It wasn't, the whale injuries was not the real issue. The problem was there was an airline in Hawaii that wasn't wild about the idea. But go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, well, I guess the main concern here is we've got these, knife blade foils running through the water at 40 knots, which could pose a significant risk to mammals. So the way we think about that is it would pose a significant risk to the vessel as well, which means we're more or less aligned with the mammal in that we don't want to hit it. Recently, in the last 5 years, there have been excellent developments in object detection sonar systems, forward scanning sonars that are operable at high speed, which can detect very small things. So a mammal should be fairly straightforward to detect, up to ranges of 1,000 meters. So the name of the game for us is object detection and avoidance. We can also use some surface radar technology to help detect things like marine mammals. Also, compared to a normal vessel, we have a much greater degree of control. So we can bank and steer out of the way and avoid things better than your average kind of vessel. So that's how we plan to solve that problem.
Okay. Yeah, radar doesn't really work for tracking mammals very well, but the and what were the parameters? What are your parameters for weather and sea state?
We're designing we're designing the vessel to operate in a sea state, 5, but as we progress to do more work and work with the operators that we plan to sell the vessels to, and looking at the regions where we operate, we can actually configure the vessel to deal with what needs to be dealt with. So one aspect of the vessel that can be modified is the length of the strut that connects the foil to the vessel. The higher that is, or the more clearance that has, the greater wave handling it has, in addition to the inherent ship being a catamaran.
Very good, thank you. I've got a question for Brandon. Brandon, in light of what you told us at the beginning, how is warehousing going to be different in a post-COVID period? Are there some things that are fundamentally going to change?
I think so. Employee safety has always been paramount, but more from a physical standpoint. I think now, kind of with this new normal and foreseeable future, I think we need to do a better job of keeping people safe, whether COVID, flu, or just general sickness. I think that there'll be different safety equipment that will be used moving forward, such as masks or gloves and a hand sanitizer. So in that regard, I think we need to pay more attention to how we keep the employees safe, not only physically, but also from just a general health standpoint. And I'll close with on that mental health. I touched on it briefly, but last year, looking at a lot of people who had to show up every day with the stress of their kids or family, or a lot of people live with their parents, it was a tough pill to swallow, and something that I think every level of every company, we need to pay more attention to it and ensure that we keep people healthy mentally as well.
Very good, thank you. Darren, how has global warming changed the kind of parameters that you've been dealing with. If you are we starting to see more unpredictable weather patterns, and how do you anticipate those and advise your customers?
Well, Tony might be able to speak on this better than I as far as more in-depth weather studies go. I would venture to guess that we might be looking at maybe slower progression, just longer duration systems. If you think of like Harvey in the Gulf, just sitting there for quite some time, not moving out and then dumping on Texas as hard as it did. I mean, there's going to be oscillations, of course, but I might kick this to Tony. But generally, it hasn't been a massive shift strategy-wise, season to season. I think the oscillations with the jet stream when we're talking about El Nino and La Nina still has more of a driver of decision making.
Okay, Tony, do you want to answer that too?
Yeah, sure. I mean, probably a good example to reference is the Bering Sea ice. Every winter we have sea ice build from the Arctic Ocean through the Bering Strait into the Bering Sea. And, that inherently allows that access to the northern route through the Bering Sea for westbound voyages. And with climate change, that ice is forming later and breaking up earlier. So that's actually leading to, I think, a more volatile weather pattern on that northern sea route going through the Bering Sea. And as Darren was speaking about as well, I think another impact we're going to see is a repeating pattern. So, for example, like I'm going to use the Eastern Atlantic because that's a heavy shipping lane. For voyages going in and out of the English Channel, you'll have like repeated storms diving into Western Europe one after another. And I think the winter of 2014 was a perfect example of what could happen there, where we had so many delays of ships just waiting for that opportunity to be able to transit from the English Channel out into, towards Gibraltar Strait and that cross-Atlantic voyage. So I think the impact is obviously going to be a lot more delays in the future with, patterns that are just kind of locked in, where you have storminess in one part of the ocean. And if, you happen to have a ship in that location, it's not going to be able to, make its schedule potentially. So and every year it's different. I think it's hard to say, well, climate change is going to do this. It's basically expect the unexpected, I think, is what we need to anticipate in the future.
Very good, Tony. Thank you. Brandon, Jose, you have a question.
Yes, thank you. I have a question. First of all, thank you for inviting me, Mr. Stoss, to join this meeting. And Propeller Club brings back good memories. I'm a cadet from Cal.
You're also a CMA graduate.
Yes, I am also a CMA graduate. I graduated a few years ago from California Maritime, and during my time, I was with Mr. Stoss. He lets me hang out with him sometimes. Appreciate it. My question is, after I graduated, I started studying cybersecurity. And now that I'm back here with Propeller Club, I was just kind of curious about, because we understand that the supply chain tackles many risks, which is great, like zero emissions, how to handle COVID. Especially this COVID season has a lot of employees going back home, bringing their laptops and working from home. It tackles it brings in a new different kind of risk, a cybersecurity risk. And this is something quite new. I feel it's very impactful because supply chain is a global system that it links a lot of partners together. I was wondering how the logistics and supply chain nowadays, and I'm free to hear anybody's opinion, is how are you guys tackling this new cybersecurity issue, especially with COVID? There's more cyber attacks that are happening nowadays, now that people are working at home.
Very good. Brandon McDonnell, could you answer that?
I'll give it a shot. Probably a very basic answer, but it's a great question in the sense that we actually had 6 laptops stolen last year. People who had laptops. We've also actually were victim of a cyber attack last year. We had almost like the movie War Games. Our IT guy was stressed out, pulling his hair out. We brought a consultant in, and we actually had people within our systems. And as they explained it to me, had they made it right, or left, they actually would have wholly entered our system and been able to hold it hostage. So we've actually updated a lot of our servers. We rerouted everything. We actually have administrative offices in Nicaragua that do all of our backroom support as far as receivables and payables. That's been an ongoing challenge for us as well. And while I can't speak to the specifics of what we've done, I know that we've invested a fair amount of time, and we've brought in 2 additional IT staff to help protect, I guess, all of our servers and information, if you will. And Brandon, if you're more interested, you're welcome to send me an email on specific questions, and I get people who are actually experts to answer that question better than I did.
Well, that is very, I will make sure, Brandon, that you get Brandon McDonnell's email so you can ask him that question. And thank you very much for this. We are at the end of our session here. We've run a little bit over. I want to thank everybody for their participation. Brandon McDonnell, Darren Shems, Ed Kearney. We look forward to seeing you again. Brandon, very, very tough year, and something that we all hope we won't be seeing anytime soon. Darren, I think your challenges are just beginning in terms of weather, and Tony, thanks for that update on the ice. And Ed, as always, you're on the cutting edge there, but as Laura said, you can't be too cutting. So I want to thank everybody. Remember, we are on for Maritime Day, May 20th and 21st. Registration is free, and we'll be sending that one out. The notice is out next week. Propeller Club board members, please don't leave. We've got a Propeller Club board afterwards. Mary Schindler, thank you very much for your participation. Please send me any of your questions so we can process them and get you some answers. At the end of the day, as Brandon pointed out, a lot of very hard work was done in the last year. Many people placed themselves at risk in order to keep our supply chain open. And I want to thank you, Brandon, and the employees at PCC Logistics, our truckers, our longshoremen for the great work that they have done, our harbor staffs, our mariners. You guys really did a great job, and this was a very eloquent testament to some of the challenges that we faced in the warehouse. I hope all of you are well. I look forward to seeing you on the 20th and 21st. Thank you for your service, and the best wishes for the future, and Godspeed.